Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees, and a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. Good Sunday morning, Belly Up Fantasy
Sunday,
Live. Here we are.
That's right. The whistle knows.
That's right. Time to wake up.
It's time to wake up and tune in.
I got my coffee there from New Glarus, coffee stout to be more specific, but a little bit of a wake-up call because had to be up early. My son, my teenager, had him this weekend, and he lets me know yesterday, essentially, oh, by the way, I have to be at school to leave for a trip. They're going to a play in the Twin Cities. He's like, I got to be at school at 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, well, that's interesting because that's what time my show starts. And his school is 15 miles away. I was like, well, okay, you're going to get dropped off a little early, which means I got to wake up early. But we're here.
I don't have stout, but I do have some cherry limeade.
There you have
happening.
There you go.
There we have it. Let me turn it around. So, all right.
There it is. All right. No, we're drinking the coffee stout this morning, trying to get a shot of adrenaline here because I needed it. Late night last night, early morning this morning, but here we are. We're ready to talk some football. Man, the playoffs have started, and they started with a bang.
They certainly did, and as we were talking a little bit ago, unfortunately, my Seahawks couldn't carry it home. Nobody's surprised by that. But, until Geno Smith fumbled the football, they were right in that game.
Man, I'll tell you what, 4 different teams had each had one great quarter or half yesterday. The Seahawks looked really good for the first half of their game. The 49ers looked real good the second half of their game. And the same thing in the nightcap where the Chargers looked great in the first half and the Jaguars looked really good in the second half. 4 teams each had a great half yesterday. Nobody necessarily put an entire game together. But, man, what a fun start to the playoff season.
And the interesting part of that comeback is that the Chargers did not help out the Jaguars by turning the ball over.
No. It was just they were just efficient when they finally got the
football, which has been there. They haven't been able to run it very well, seeing as how they have an RB1 in their backfield. But and then he scored 2 rushing touchdowns in the first quarter.
Yeah,
right. He had 21 yards rushing touchdowns in the first quarter, and then he only wound up with 35 for the game.
Yeah,
so there's your fault on the Charger side of what happened last night.
They just showed a complete inability and defensively too to put the game away,
right?
And to really, whatever metaphor you want to use, stomp on their throat or whatever you want to say, they just showed an inability to close that game out. And you know what? We've seen the Chargers not just under Brandon Staley, but for several years now. It seems like that franchise, that team has had
the snake bitterness, if that's even a word, franchise.
It is now.
In football.
Yeah.
I mean, years ago they turned Tom Brady over. They intercepted him, but on the interception, they fumbled, and the Patriots got the ball back, and they went down and got a touchdown and won the game.
Yeah.
And so, that's just one example, and they've started great over there.
Their kicker issues that they've had, and again last night.
Yeah.
Again last night. If Dicker makes that 40-yard, and he had been great in the game. He had a good game. And he had a great season for them.
That's right.
And he won games
and it
for
wasn't
them.
That long a field goal, and it just pulled left.
He won games for 2 playoff teams this year. I mean, to be dead honest, he won a game. He won that first game he played. He kicked the game-winning field goal for Philadelphia. Right. And then they released him, and then San Diego picks him up, and he did San Diego, Los Angeles. Sorry. Mea culpa. But no,
you can call him San Diego. It's still fine.
They picked him up, and he won their
San Diego's probably glad they're rid of him after, last night.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like they aren't where they are now without picking up Cameron Dicker. And he had a great game yesterday. Had a ton of points.
He kicked 3 field goals.
But if he makes that 40-yarder, that game's not. They're having to play for a touchdown at the end, not the field goal. Now they drove. Right. And if they drove, and it was possible. They sat on their field goal, on their field goal line for. They reached it at 1:05 was when I think they finally tackled Etienne after that.
Right. What a gutsy call that was. And there were 2 gutsy calls right there. First, the run was Etienne. And then when Bosa's going ape over there and throwing his helmet all over the field, and they give him an unsportsmanlike penalty, move it to the 1.
Yeah. And
they don't go for the extra point to put it
in there. Yep.
Yeah, for 3 points, right? They don't do that.
They played for the win.
That, then but they went for it, got the 2-point conversion, and then that allowed them to go down and kick the field goal to win the game.
They played to win, and they won. And now, what a great finish. But yeah, if you kick that field goal, they have to go for if you make that 40-yarder, they have to go for the touchdown. The way they drove, the way they got down there, now, they would have had to. They had to drive, and they were driving, and they got themselves down inside the red zone anyway. So it's no guarantee that they wouldn't have gotten the touchdown, but it does change the complexion of things if he makes that field goal.
Changes it completely, and then right before that missed field goal, they had holding offense, and then Jacksonville declined the penalty, put them at 4th down, and so if they took the penalty, it had been 3rd down, and they could have had another play. They didn't do that. They tried to field goal, didn't make it, and then we're off to the races after that.
Well, the Charger loss kind of messes up my playoff rankings that I had for people in fantasy playoff leagues because I had the Chargers winning yesterday. I had the Chargers playing 2 games. I didn't have them winning the next round, but I did have them playing 2 games. So my rankings on the Chargers are shot high now because now they're not playing the 2 games.
Right.
They didn't get the game.
They don't have Herbert anymore, and they don't have Eckler, and they don't have,
Well, if you had drafted Eckler, you thought, heck yeah, man. Here we go.
2 touchdowns in the first quarter. You think, man, we're on our way.
Woo, yeah. No, you were set to hit the moon. But now not only do you not get 2 games out of him, but you didn't get the 1 game out of him that you were hoping for. He averaged over 21 fantasy points a game this year, and he did not look great after that first quarter. But
no, like I said, he only had 35 yards rushing.
No,
and
not at all.
The 2 touchdowns accounted for 21 of it. So he went straight into the can after that.
But we had a couple of great performances yesterday. I'll tell you what, Brock Purdy could not look further from the last pick in the draft.
Worrying about him. He had 3 touchdown passes 2 games in a row now. And so I've been saying the 49ers, which makes me, like I said last episode, what we did, throw up in my mouth a little bit. They are the most dangerous team in these playoffs.
They really are. It's 11 wins in a row now.
11 wins in a row.
Their rookie, Mr. Irrelevant quarterback looks the farthest thing from a rookie last pick that you could look right now.
Not only did he score 3 touchdown passes, he also run one in.
And he had his career high in passing yards. Like the guy in the biggest stage, the biggest game of his life. And every game's been the biggest game of his life since he took the field the first time.
Absolutely.
He wasn't supposed to even be here.
Right. He didn't even have a clipboard on the sideline.
This dude he's got some nerves of steel, man. We talk about Matty Ice and how Matt Ryan had ice in his veins, supposedly, and was always so cool about things. Brock Purdy nothing phases that dude, it seems like. And yeah, like you said, he had a streak of I brought it up before. Every game he was throwing 2 touchdowns. Well, now he's got a streak of 3 touchdown passes per game. And as you said, ran one in. If you had him in
2 games in a row now. So
if you had him in daily format yesterday, if you had him as a DFS play, which I did in one of my builds,
right,
man,
and you can do that like and save some, of your dollars and load up elsewhere. If you did that, you're golden.
And he's probably going to be a cheaper option for as long as they're in it, because, just
Right.
At
you
some
got
point,
Allen and guys like that on, yeah.
Allen
So
and Joe Burrow,
so he's going to be at the bottom of the barrel.
Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes haven't even entered the
For
conversation yet.
if Minnesota loses and Daniel Jones advances, then he may not be behind him. But
he
other
may not
than
be
that,
quite behind Daniel Jones, but I'll tell you what, there are some good. If you're playing daily now, obviously playoff drafts have already happened, so you've got who you've got and you're stuck with it. But if you ended up with Purdy, as I in my rankings suggested, because I have the 49ers going to the Super Bowl. I think they were the hottest team coming in.
The only game they'll have to play on the road is if Philadelphia wins.
If they have to play Philadelphia. And I think
they can go in there and they can beat them.
The way the Eagles ended the year, the way they've looked lately,
right,
versus the way the 49ers have looked lately, the Eagles did enough early in the year to get the seeding, but the 49ers are the top team in the conference right now.
I think so. I think there's no doubt.
Now, we still have to play the game. We saw that last night. We've seen it every
year.
You
still have to play it.
It comes out. But, if the 49ers make it, if any of the teams from this weekend make it to the Super Bowl, that means in your playoff league, you've got 4 games out of that guy. Anybody on your team that comes from this weekend, you're getting 4 games out of. Now, Brock Purdy only averaged like just under 12 fantasy points a game as the primary starter there. But he was that puts him in the top 20. So he's a top 20 type quarterback, but he was not like shooting the lights out. They weren't asking him to be. He wasn't throwing for a ton of yards, but he was getting 2 touchdowns like clockwork. He did have one rushing touchdown
turning the ball over.
And exactly.
That's the key to his whole game, not turning the ball over, unlike Jimmy G.
Right.
So he's not putting the 49ers a negative, game script. Right. And so if he continues to do that, then
and he's got the weapons there. The world's his oyster.
He does.
He's got to throw to and run with.
Who we didn't know if would even play yesterday.
He was a game winner for you yesterday. He was a game winner for you yesterday. If you had Deebo Samuel Daily and didn't win
in the DFS conversation, because didn't know if he was even going to play, but he showed up big.
He actually was cheaper than Brandon Ayuk on DraftKings.
And Brandon Ayuk, he was fine too.
Brandon Ayuk was fine in your lineup.
was fine. But if you went with the 49ers, you're fine. Even though Kittle, as we thought maybe would go all crazy, he did not.
Should have, but he still got you double-digit points. He didn't kill you, didn't tank you. But if you had either Purdy or Samuel in your day lineup and you didn't win yesterday, I'd like to see what you did with the rest of your money, because man, those guys went off. McCaffrey had a McCaffrey game.
Yep, as he always does.
26 some points. But that's the game you have to play though when you talk about fantasy, playoff fantasy leagues. You have to gauge, you have to make your picks. Basically, you have to construct your bracket in your mind first, or on paper even, but you have to know who you think is going to play more games. And then you have to stick to the courage of your convictions there and take your shot. And somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. And if you get an upset in the first round, so be it.
So if you pick the 49ers, that's good. Yep. I would have stayed away from the Jacksonville Chargers, because that was a pick'em game to me. I wouldn't have played any and put any of those guys on there.
I stayed away from Jacksonville because I thought they were going to be a one and done. I thought the Chargers would get 2 games. I thought that even if the Chargers did lose, you might get big enough shot games from the players. You were talking to Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert. We're talking guys that can score some points. And it's not that they didn't score points. It's just that now you're only getting 1 game of that. And on the other side, you did have some nice performances. Zay Jones, one of my calls in my article yesterday. He had a great game.
NTN had 109 yards rushing.
It was a nice cheap option
to
plug
bodes
Zay
well
Jones
for
in.
him going up against that Kansas City defense.
Yes. But that's the game you have to play, is you have to decide, okay, somebody like Brock Purdy, who had not been a top flight, top 8 type quarterback or whatever, but gave you consistent, steady points. Do you take the consistent, steady points for what you think is going to be 3 to 4 games? Or do you take the big shot Justin Herbert, and hoping that he can get you 20-some, 30-some in maybe only 1 or 2 games. Because by the end of it, everybody, I mean, if you had 10, 12 players in your playoff league, you know, chances are some guys lost their quarterback this weekend, right? Chances are some people lost their quarterback, no matter who it was. Somebody was going to have to lose their quarterback this weekend. So your hope is that if you had to lose your quarterback, you at least got some points out of that guy, because somebody's going to lose their running back tonight, their number 1 running back.
Absolutely.
You know, somebody's going to lose. It's going to happen. But you have to play that game of how many games do you think guys are going to play, and use that accordingly.
If I was doing playoff, you know, fantasy, the 49ers would be there, the Bengals would be there, and the Bills would be there, because those 3 teams were and are very favored.
Yep. And when I put my lineup together, when I put my rankings together, I looked at, I literally made the chart from top down. I said, okay, I think the 49ers make the Super Bowl, so I know they're going to play 4 games in my head. Who's going to play 3 games? Who do I have only playing 2 games? Who do I have as a one and done? Then in the one and dones, who do I think is going to be who have the biggest flash game there? Because, you know, if I think the Giants are going to win today, and I don't, again, talk about throwing up your mouth. I think the Vikings win today.
That's a pick 'em game to me. We'll get to that later.
But I think the Vikings win today. So I think the Giants are one and done. So, you know, but if I think the Vikings are going to lose and I'm only going to get 1 game, Justin Jefferson is all of a sudden not the overall wide receiver number 1 in this draft.
He isn't.
But he's still high because I know he can flash. So that's the game you have to play when you're talking about that. But in the daily format, you can take a team that you think is going to lose and mine them for points.
Right. Completely. So if you did that and you started Metcalf yesterday, you're in good shape.
Right.
2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then we talked about that. That was the Seattle's weapons, and he showed out.
Yeah.
So
he was the one guy that really went off. You weren't necessarily hurt by playing some of the other guys. Tyler Lockett didn't have quite the game I was hoping he would have, that I thought he might have. You know, Kenneth Walker, obviously, you know, didn't
if you started him against that San Francisco defense, then I don't know what
exactly. But that's the thing.
There's no, you have to be smart. There's no comforting coming for me on that.
Right. But yeah, what a fun day of football yesterday. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Fun day, and we got football till our eyes bleed today as well. So you know, it starts at noon our time, and then goes till 10 o'clock tonight, probably. 10
o'clock tonight. Yep. I will have the babies in bed tonight before football's done, and I will be watching it on my phone the whole time. Let's take our break here early. Listen to our True Classic spot. And when we come back on the other side, then we're going to kick it right off with the Sunday early game between the Dolphins and the Bills. But first, let's listen to as you've said before, the dulcet tones of Dan Mater telling us all about True Classic teas.
Yeah, so
football is back, baby. And our new sponsor, True Classic, wants you to look and feel your best even after a couple of brewskis or going full force on your fantasy football draft. Sure, it's football season, but it's also butt to couch season. Luckily, True Classic has the absolute best fitting clothing a man can buy. Snug in the arms and chest with a little extra space in the torso, their t-shirts are designed to keep you cozy and highlight your best assets no matter what you're up to. So if your special someone is upset that you're watching football all day, at least you can look good doing it. True Classic has already helped over 2 million men find the perfect fit at an affordable price. Our listeners get access to the best deal they offer. For a limited time only, get 25% off with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at TrueClassic.com. Almost all men's t-shirts are designed to look good on skinny models with 6-packs, but most of us aren't packing anything but a few beers. Fellas, you are wearing the wrong clothes. True Classic tees taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders. It's time to highlight your best attributes with a t-shirt you can always confidently throw on. It's about time to get your fit together, so upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic and get 25% off at TrueClassic.com with promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. That's 25% off at TrueClassic.com with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. If there's one bet you should make this football season, it's on True Classic. True Classic, look good, feel good.
All right, welcome back there.
Right,
Kevin.
as I was going to say before we break, if you are having a bad day, just listen to Dan Mater, and that will make everything better.
Oh, right, yeah, and well, MD's Fantasy Football Show, his show, they're on break, they're on hiatus for a little while. He's got some shorts that are still out. If you follow him on Twitter, and I recommend you follow him on Twitter.
Absolutely, if you're not following him, you're falling down on the job.
He's still putting together content. He's still putting out tips there. Just taking a break on the show for a little while.
Right,
here, but
he's put out plenty of content this weekend, telling you what prop bets to look at and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check him out.
All right, but let's get into it here. Now we've got 4 games left, 6 games this weekend, 4 games left, 3 today, and then the new thing that they're trying to make some money, which I'm sure will be a rousing success. Monday night football game for the first round of the playoffs here tomorrow night. Now, interesting scenario happened this year where every first round playoff game was between teams that had already played this season, including 3 divisional matchups. You had your game, your 49er Seahawk game yesterday. We've got Dolphins Bills today. And we've also got Bengals Ravens, who honestly just played each other yesterday in the backyard.
Okay, there it is.
Go. So we 3 divisional matchups, but everybody else had already played each other as well. Tomorrow night,
that's the first game that they played of the season. So you could throw that
game.
You could
throw everything out.
Just throw it away. Don't look at it. Don't analyze it because it means absolutely nothing.
But we do have this interesting scenario where these teams have played each other already this season. And now the first game today, you've got Dolphins are visiting the Bills. Dolphins snuck in last week thanks in part to the Bills. Dolphins took care of their business, but they needed the Bills to beat the Patriots. The Bills pounded the Patriots last week.
With two touchdown kick return.
Right. I said they looked like a team that was rallying around each other.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hamlin's on their sideline.
It would not
today.
Shock me if he's on.
He's out of the hospital. He got out on Wednesday.
In fact, he was at their team facility on Friday,
right?
Which is really cool.
Really cool. So I don't know what they think about him, being mobile involved like that and stuff like that. But if there's any chance, he's going to be on that Buffalo Bills sideline.
It wouldn't shock me. I would think he's at least in the building. I would think
at least in the building.
He may make
an appearance be on the big screen and all that. And Buffalo is everything is. It couldn't look any better for Buffalo right now than it does.
What a wonderful story that ends up being. Like my wife, I've told you guys before, my wife is a doctor. Mm-hmm. She's a family medicine physician. We were just talking about it again yesterday. She said, that unfortunately is not the Damar Hamlin outcome that we have seen so far. And everything looks promising and great so far. And that's so awesome. But that is not the outcome with every one of those cases. You're talking about a young man who A, was a young man, B, is a finely conditioned athlete. His body was in great shape going into that episode. And then it happened in the most perfect place on earth for something like that to happen.
Right.
To be on everybody, where there was a defibrillator right there. There were medical professionals on scene. It was caught literally immediately by even the people, his friends and teammates and opponents around him saw immediately it happen, and he got the best care you could possibly get as soon as you can possibly get it.
And we have a prime example of how different outcomes could happen because we got Hamlin, right? And then this week, Lisa Marie Presley was found unconscious.
Cardiac arrest.
Cardiac arrest. And I don't know how long it took for whoever to find her.
And therein lies the problem.
She didn't make it.
No.
Right? Got her to the hospital. She was in full cardiac arrest, and
you're talking about someone who, again,
so
she was not old. 54 is not old. 54 can't be old.
She's younger than I am.
But you're talking about someone who, has all the money in the world.
54 is not old.
She had all the money in the world, all the access to everything you could be, but it doesn't always come out the way that this DeMar Hamlin situation came out. So thank whatever power you want to thank.
We couldn't be more happy about how this turned out than that it did.
But they looked like a team that was rallying around each other. They played together. They played as a family. They looked like they were, I mean, we knew they were talented. They've been talented all year. They're talented on defense. They're talented on offense. We knew that. But
now they're talented in their special teams. So,
they look like they're, now you bringing in Nyheim Hines at the break was a huge pull at the trade deadline, bringing him over from Indianapolis and putting him back there to return kicks. They look like they're a good team. They have returned to that 2 or 3 teams that they're in the conversation to win it all. They look like they're firmly entrenched in that by now.
Absolutely.
Now these two teams, I mean, they played each other just about a month ago by now, but week 15, they split their 2 games, their divisional games this season. Miami won the first one, and they each won their home game, basically, and they were close. Miami only won the first one by 2.
Miami team that played that first game,
and they're both different Miami teams. I mean, if you want to think about it like
absolutely, they are. Absolutely.
The first game, Miami wins 21-19. The second game, Buffalo needs a field goal to beat Miami 32-29 at home, but both of those Miami teams had Tua Tagovailoa at the helm, running the offense,
which they don't have.
They are not going to have.
They don't even have their backup. So
you're talking about a team that's on their 3rd string emergency quarterback, and that 3rd string emergency quarterback.
Purdy. He's not.
He was taken in front of Brock Purdy in the same round, 7th round. I think 247 overall. I think Thompson was.
Yeah. And that's not a winning combination if the 247th overall is quarterback.
The Tom Brady's of the world,
that's not good.
The Tom Brady's and the Brock Purdy's of the world don't come around very often down in the 200s when you pick for quarterback, especially their rookie seasons. So, unfortunately, I mean, you're talking about the juggernaut in the Bills, and you're talking about this team in the Dolphins that isn't going to have their either of their top 2 quarterbacks. And Bridgewater may be available if he has to go. He's got a broken thumb, but he can at least throw and play, so he will be available to back up today if something should happen to Skylar Thompson. But this again, I don't know that anybody would pick the Dolphins here.
I don't know if Commissioner Cooper would even.
Right, they're their biggest fan. Yep, right here on the network.
Here on the network. And
we're pulling for you, buddy, I guess.
That's right. And he was at the game last week.
Yeah.
And so,
that may have
they made the playoffs.
Yep.
And, just like with the Seahawks, that's, I believe, is going to have to be enough for them to make the playoff.
So I didn't have many of the Dolphins ranked very highly because of this quarterback situation, because I think they're a pretty clear one and done. In drafts, but on daily,
they're the clearest one and done out of the whole lot, I think.
Is there anybody on this team in daily that you think might be usable today, that you might want to go into a game with today, or you think can at least help you out either from a roster build standpoint or actually score you some points?
Well, if you're going to do that, you're going to need to look at the wide receivers, I believe. Even though they don't have a quarterback to throw, really. But Hill, he's pretty much matchup proof. But I would have to be talked in to even Hill or Waddle or any of those guys.
And that's the problem. You've got a couple of top 10 wide receivers. Hill was wide receiver 2 on the year. Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 9. But if you look at what they did the last 2 weeks, with Thompson at the helm, and Thompson taking over for Bridgewater after he got hurt in week 17, and Thompson playing the entire game last week, they did not look, no, they didn't score. They didn't hit. I mean, I think Hill, if off the top of my head, I think Hill had, he did. He had 2 catches last week on 5 targets. One of the top receivers in football, wide receiver 2 on the year, had 5 targets, 2 catches, 23 yards. And Waddle caught all 5 of the balls that came his way, but he only had 44 yards receiving.
That's right.
Those are not going to get it done for you. And those are not the kinds of guys that you want for a one and done scenario if you're in a playoff league, but in a daily format.
In a playoff league, there's no chance any Miami showing up in that.
The problem in daily right now is that they're both going to be real. Tyreek Hill is the third most expensive player on DraftKings this week.
Okay. Third most expensive, then I'm not doing that.
He's got nobody throwing to him. Exactly.
Right.
I don't see any way that he returns value at that price.
See, they're looking at that he had 170 targets this year and he had 119 catches.
But he had 5 last week, 2 catches.
Yeah, and so you gotta, you gotta look at what's happening today, not
and what have you done for me lately and what can you do for me today? So Hill and Waddle could flash, but at their price, I agree with you.
I don't think so, because the Bills are the number 1 overall defense in the entire NFL. You're telling, I think Skylar Thompson is going to be on the run, or if he can't even get out of the pocket, he's going to get hit a lot. So that does not look good to me at all.
There are 2 players, and I haven't been high on these guys necessarily all year. The one we've talked about before. There are 2 guys who might be able to help you in daily this week from the Dolphins. First one I want to bring up is Jeff Wilson at running back.
Okay.
Jeff Wilson is only 5,400 right now on DraftKings. Raheem Mostert is out. He has a broken thumb, I believe it is. But Raheem Mostert has already been ruled out. So you've got Jeff Wilson is going to probably play.
His name is Wilson, and I'd love to go yay, over him. But the Bills, unfortunately,
they're very good against the run.
They are the number 4 overall defense against the run. So it's not happening for Miami. It just isn't.
No. It's so unfortunate because the one good matchup you have, if you're from a fantasy standpoint, if you're facing the Bills, the one good matchup you have is at wide receiver, and you've got 2 top 10 wide receivers on the other side, but they have nobody to throw to them.
Right.
They have nobody to throw to them. So
so that's why you need to look at the Bengals or
take that chance
with Diggs, right, or somebody like that.
Right.
Do that.
If you want to take a chance with Wilson, I would take it as your running back 2 or flex. He's going to play a ton, but you're hoping that he's.
But if you're averaging 2.9 yards,
you're hoping he gets 7 or 8 targets in the game. You're hoping that they lean on the run to keep the Bills off the field, kind of thing.
That's the only chance that they have.
And you're hoping that he can sneak a touchdown in, right?
Right.
The only other guy that I might consider because he's cheap is Mike Gesicki at tight end, and I hate even saying that.
There's 0 chance of me doing it.
But over the last 2 games, with Thompson at the helm, both Gesicki and Durham Smythe had an uptick in their targets and an uptick in relative uptick in their catches.
Well, they had to have. Gesicki only had 32 catches, so he had to have an uptick.
Right, and I'm exaggerating somewhat, but like 73% of them came, I think, in week 18 with Skylar Thompson starting. So you've got an opportunity there to maybe go cheap at tight end, even cheaper than you normally want to go at tight end, and maybe catch lightning in a bottle for one game. It's not something I would feel good about, but it's the kind of thing where if you want to go cheap at that position, there is at least an argument to be made and a rational, logical reason to use Mike Gesicki. I wouldn't use Smythe, but I would possibly use Gesicki in a daily build. But other than them, I can't touch anybody on that Dolphins team.
No.
Now the other side
if you're looking to do anything in fantasy or dailies or whatever else, Miami's not the way to go.
Now on the other side of things,
we're talking.
Kyle Allen, there are a ton of points to be scored here.
Yep.
But my worry is that,
especially since Miami's 27 against the pass.
Yeah, Miami is not good
deadly going up against Buffalo.
My favorite plays here from Buffalo in daily, because obviously they were a good pick in fantasy drafts and in playoff drafts. But my favorite plays here in daily, not necessarily Allen. If you play Allen, you probably have to play Diggs, and that you're spending a ton of money there between those two guys. Diggs is one of the more expensive.
There's a ton of money right there. So
you're going to blow a lot of your $50K budget on those two guys right there, and that's going to limit you somewhere else. I like Dawson Knox at 4,000. That's not terrible for a tight end, and it's a great matchup. Dolphins give up a ton of points to opposing tight ends in fantasy.
Well, at least Dawson Knox had 48 hits, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
he plays.
I'm not overjoyed over that, but
no, I'm not. I've said all year I think they need to use him. He doesn't see enough use in the red zone, and he is very much a red zone tight end. He is not the Travis Kelce, George Kittle midfield open use tight end. He is a red zone tight end, and they don't necessarily throw to him enough in the red zone for me to be comfortable using him all the time. But it's a good matchup against the Dolphins, and you're not necessarily paying through the nose for him there. If you want to use Allen and you want to use Diggs, you're paying a ton of money there. If you want to stack them, go all in, stack them with, say, Dawson Knox underneath that, you've got an opportunity for a lot of points there, but you're also spending some money for those points. I don't like Devin Singletary in this game at 5,500.
No,
it's not
because Miami is number 6 against the run, so they can bring it on the run.
And
so
even if
Singletary, Cook, don't like either one of them.
No, I've said it before that Singletary is not the kind of running back that they lean on and pound the other team with when they get up in the second half. If they're up big, which they are all the dang time, they don't necessarily go to, okay, hand it to Devin, and kill some clock. They don't do that in Buffalo. So Singletary doesn't get that usage. You don't like Cook though, huh? For a swing at things, or
he against that Miami defense, the run is not where to go with Buffalo's running game. If we're talking about DFS or we're talking any of that, because even though Cook averaged 5.7 yards per carry, which is outstanding, he only had 2 touchdowns, and Singletary averaged 4.6 yards a carry, which is again it's not outstanding, but it's good. You'll take that out of your running back, but still, I don't know.
Good point. You brought up a good point with the way that Miami plays the pass and how good they are against the pass. Part of me wants to say then that, maybe not playing Allen as your quarterback and saving some money at quarterback by, again, taking somebody like a Cousins or Jones. But this game to me has the feel of a game where they could throw a couple to James Cook from the 10-yard line. You know what I mean? And then have Davis sneak one from the 36. And all of a sudden you're talking now, you've got points scored by those guys. And Diggs maybe had 10 targets, but only caught 7 balls for 68 yards kind of thing.
I don't know. If they're going to throw some passes to a running back, that leads me to the Singletary more than Cook to me. It
just has that kind of feeling where maybe the usual suspects aren't the ones who actually do it today for the Bills. So I like the lower salary guys in daily from the Bills more so than necessarily paying up. I don't think they're going to have to do a ton, offensively. I don't think they're going to have to be throwing the ball all over. They may very well score a lot in one half, but you're also paying a real premium for those points if they're coming from Buffalo today. All right. Go ahead.
There's some other guys that we're about to talk about that might be better
value
to me in DFS than Singletary or Cook.
Well, let's talk about the late game. Let's move on to the Giants and the Vikings.
Do that.
All right, Giants and the Vikings, they're going to be on Fox at 4:30 where time begins in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Here in the Central, that's 3:30 when we're used to it. But the Vikings are only a half-point favorite according to our friends over at Quarter 4.
Okay.
And everywhere you look,
seems like that number's been going down throughout the week.
They are a consensus less than a field goal favorite. If you look at any of the sports books,
and if they're at home and less than a 3-point favorite, that means they think the Giants are the better team.
That means it's a complete
when you pull it all down to it.
The over-under on this game is 51. They think there are going to be some points scored today in Minneapolis, and I think I agree with them.
That may well be the case, but if we're getting over 51, I think that does not go the Giants' way, because they can lean on their ground game between Jones and of course Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And if both of those guys are putting together some good runs, then Minnesota doesn't have the football a whole lot.
Right.
And so if you're talking about, you got to spend money for Barkley, but he is the much, much better guy going up against Minnesota, because let me see here. They're the they stink overall in defense all the way around.
They're terrible.
They're terrible. They're 20th against the rush, which is their best.
That's their best ranking.
That's their best.
Yeah.
And if number 20 is your best, that's not good.
No, the Vikings, as I've said all year, they are a get-right defense in fantasy and on the field. You can put up some points and you can feel good about your offensive day playing against the Minnesota Vikings this year.
Right. So if you're looking to save some money, I think Daniel Jones is an excellent option. And
over Daniel Jones.
And so, if you're not looking to go with Allen, perhaps Jones is the guy. And you compare him with Saquon Barkley, I think that's a winning combination.
I said it in my article. We all think of Saquon Barkley and we think of those first 2 years in the league when he was so deadly and everything he did. Every time he touched the ball, he might take it 73 yards for a score. And he caught so many balls that first year, and he tailed off a little bit the second year. And then since then, he has not been used in the pass game as much as we all want him to be.
Right.
We all want him to be that same
even
guy.
Though he still caught 57 balls.
He was fifth among running backs in target share this year. So when they throw the ball, they are looking his way. They just have not thrown as much as the Chargers did to Eckler, obviously. But he has put together a good receiving season.
Right. And because that's the receivers for the Giants are suspect at best.
And the last time they played the Minnesota Vikings, which was only 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago by now. I'm sorry, 3 weeks ago, but week 16. Saquon Barkley had 10 targets in that game. That was his highest total of the year.
And that makes sense because Minnesota is number 31 against pass.
So if they use him,
they see the same scouting report. That's more detailed, obviously.
He's getting 10 targets. If he catches 7 or 8 balls,
and then he gets 100 yards rushing,
and gets in the end zone once or twice, he could explode today. Even if they lose, Saquon Barkley, which they did last time, Saquon Barkley could explode today and be worth every penny of the $7,900 you're going to have to spend for him on draft.
You're going to have to spend for him, no question.
I agree with you, though, that if you're going to go Jones at quarterback, you're going to save some money. Jones has a rushing floor, so he's going to get you some points that way. He's facing a terrible defense, so he's going to get you some points that way. And some of those points are going to go to
the tune of 7 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And 5.9 yards per carry.
Daniel Jones is one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the game. Daniel Jones is one of the most effective and best rushing quarterbacks in the game. I've said it all year, and I think
he's not turning the ball over.
No, not at all. And I hope finally the Giants are seeing that. But the problem, if you want to stack and not just pair him with if you want to play that quarterback, you want to find a receiver that's going to do something for him. They don't have a lot of big name receivers.
No, they don't. Maybe we could talk about Slayton. Maybe we could talk about
Slayton was their guy all year.
Slayton, James came on a little bit late. Richie James.
Yes.
And
Isaiah Hodgins has come on.
Hodgins, I got him here.
Hodgins and James.
Right.
In the last game against Minnesota, Hodgins and James saw 12 targets and 11 targets.
Okay.
23 targets between the two of them. And they are two of the cheapest receivers you can pick up right now on DraftKings.
Right.
So if you want to save
talk
some
about
money,
a cheap tight end, how about Mr. Bellinger?
I love Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah.
I like Daniel Bellinger a lot. It's the one area the Vikings aren't a complete train wreck versus in terms of fantasy points allowed It's tight end, but they're middle of the dead ass middle of the pack. They're 16th on the rankings that I see. They're right in the middle of the pack. It's the one area they don't just allow people into the end zone from a fantasy standpoint. But you have options if you want to go cheap with Daniel Jones and stack there, and you can use the money that you're saving there, that you're carrying around in a giant sack in front of you, to go get some of the stars from the Bengals, the Bills, wherever, to fill out the rest of your roster. You can go real cheap with New York, get a great build, and really put the screws to whoever you're playing against, because
that's right.
There are points to be had in this game.
There are
both sides.
There certainly are.
But the money has to be spent on the purple side, not the blue side.
Right.
So I love the Giants in daily today.
Even though, so Minnesota's offense, you can, because they're going up against a team in the Giants, they're 27th.
Yeah.
Against the run.
The Giants were not a great, the Giants are not a great defense.
They're 15th against the pass, but 27th against the run. So Cook, come on down.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Cook's only at 7,100 on DraftKings.
Okay. So if you can save money like you're saying and get Dalvin Cook and Barkley.
Right. Cousins is another cheap option at quarterback. He's only 5,900. He's only going to cost you $300 more than Jones, but he's costing you $2,000 less than if you want to pay for Josh Allen. And he's costing you, honestly, he's costing you $1,000 less than you'd pay for Joe Burrow. So you can still get good points.
So since they're not playing in what we call prime time, maybe that helped him out.
Right?
So,
yeah.
You know
it will not be a night game. It will not be a prime
it's not a night game, which has been a nightmare for him throughout his career.
Jefferson is expensive at wide receiver, but he's
expensive.
He's one of the few guys that can bring it at that price, 8,600. You can put together a real cheap stack, and if you check my article out that previews this game right now over at BellyUpFantasySports.com.
Wait till we're done here and then go check it out.
If you check this out, you can put together a stack with Cousins, Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. It's going to cost you $19,600 out of your $50,000 budget. You're going to get a great stack there. It's a great matchup for all three of those guys. They're going to score some points, but it still leaves you over $5,300 on average to fill out the rest of your roster, even if you went with the most expensive defense in Cincinnati. And I don't think Cincinnati is a defense to play today. I think you go the cheaper route, not bargain basement, but you can get the Bills for cheaper than you can get the Bengals right now.
If I'm going, the Bills are the way to go there. The Bills are the way to go.
The Ravens have been a train wreck on offense too.
But
and we'll talk about the Ravens in 2 minutes. They've been a train wreck on offense too.
Yes.
But you've got the exact same thing going on with both of those teams. Why not take the one that's going to save you a few hundred and spend that money elsewhere? So even if you go with the most expensive defense, you build your stack with Cousins, Jefferson, and Hawkinson, you still have a ton of money elsewhere that you can spend, especially if you want to go pick up one or two of those cheap receivers that we talked about with the Giants on the other side of the field, or take a big swing with Gabe Davis at 49. You can put together a nice stack, grab some points, but save a ton of money to be able to use again elsewhere to get yourself somebody else that's a bigger name. So
there's players to take here, and there's
if we were doing our normal Sunday, what game do you want to see in terms of fantasy? What game are you interested in fantasy wise? This is the one.
This is the one.
This is the one that we're one-sided today.
Right. It is. And it's the one game out of this that is not a foregone conclusion.
Right.
To me.
But yeah, there are points in this game, and I'm loving it. It wouldn't kill me to see the Vikings lose, but I do have the Vikings winning that game, and I do have the Vikings winning a couple. So I had them ranked a little higher in my league rankings. But then let's move on to the game that you're probably more interested in, or at least interested in from a fan standpoint. The night game tonight, the Ravens traveling to Cincinnati to see the Bengals on, pardon me. Bengals, according to quarter 4, Bengals are 7-point favorites tonight.
Okay. I think that's a solid bet right there.
Yeah.
Solid.
And,
absolutely solid. I'd bet that if I had $1 million, that's where it'd go.
Over under a 43.5. They just played each other last week.
They did.
Bengals came away with a 27-16 win. Baltimore actually beat them back in week 5, but you're talking the Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens. You're talking the early season Baltimore Ravens. The only reason the Ravens are in this game is because they were better early in the season. They've been a completely different team the last 2 months. Unfortunately, they just don't have Lamar Jackson right now. And that is a big, big factor.
It's a big problem for them. And it's affected Andrews incredibly.
Horribly.
And horribly.
And they've had terrible injury luck in the receiver core. And
the last 2 years, it's, you might want to check and see if there's some sort of, Raven curse going on over there.
Edgar Allan Poe.
I don't know what's going on. Because they get their running back, then he gets hurt, then they get another one back, then he's hurt. And it's just been an ongoing thing. They have no wide receivers that I'm trusting even a little bit.
No, I agree.
Even a little bit.
I agree. And
don't talk to me about Duvernay or any of the rest of them. I don't want to hear it.
Even at their cheap prices, I don't want to deal with any of them. My best bet from this game for the Ravens, my best bet, and he's been my best bet for them all year, pretty much. J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
They're going to run the ball now. The Bengals are.
They should because Cincinnati's weakness is run defense.
But they're
5th against the rush. I'm absolutely incorrect.
It's not a great matchup.
It's a bad matchup all the way around because they're 5th against the rush. They're 16th against the pass, 7th overall. Yep. So Baltimore, they're not doing it. They're just not.
They're a team that wants to run the ball and has to run the ball because even if they wanted to throw it, they got nobody to throw to other than Mark Andrews.
Their whole offensive philosophy is built around running the football.
Right.
But a lot of that is with Jackson running the football, and they're not getting it.
I can make a case for Dobbins in a daily lineup at 5,700. At 5,700, I could make a case for him, but I don't think that they're going to score a ton of points in this guy. I just don't think they are. Your best pass bet is Andrews, but Andrews is going to cost you 5,200 at the court at the.
And he has not provided Andrews season anywhere close.
He looked great the first month of the season when Lamar Jackson was still healthy and hale, but since then nothing.
Right.
Yeah, I
So if you use a 3rd round draft pick on him, your season was on the, in danger right from the start.
You could take a real deep flyer on Isaiah Likely because he's a little more. He's been explosive.
He has had a few games where he
seems to have a decent rapport with their backup quarterbacks, whether it's Anthony Brown, whether it's Tyler Huntley, Snoop, I guess they call him. It seems like Likely has a decent rapport with their backup quarterbacks. And so you would pay $1,900 less for Isaiah Likely, maybe get better production than you're going to get out of Mark Andrews because teams know right now they don't have to scheme for any of the wide receivers. So you stop Andrews, stop the run. You don't have to worry about the quarterback running like Lamar runs.
No, he's not capable.
You just ended that whole team. So then from a fantasy standpoint, now we have to look across the field at the Bengals.
Okay. The only one I'm not counting on is Mixon from them. But they're 29th.
I don't want to count on. Yeah.
Right. They're 29th rushing the football. I had that backwards a little bit earlier, but the Bengals are 29th in rushing the football. And with Mixon in the backfield, that's hard to fathom. And Mixon, not happening.
My favorite thing about Mixon this year, he's always been kind of a steady low end running back one in his career. But my favorite thing about Mixon this year is that they were using him in the passing game. They didn't just take him out on 3rd down and plug in Samaj P. Ryan when he was healthy. They have been throwing the ball to Mixon. I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball to Mixon very much today.
No.
And the problem with it is, if they are running the ball, Mixon has not been efficient in any way.
No.
He and Leonard Fournette.
He's not been efficient, and the Ravens are third against the run.
No.
So that can't be their game plan.
You're going to be paying $6,800 to try and plug Mixon into your daily lineup.
No. So I'm not doing that. We just talked about Barkley and Cook earlier. I don't want to hear about
split the difference with him. I'd rather take some of the money that you would have spent on him, jack it up, and get a Barkley or that we've talked about already.
Right.
And then take that lower shot with somebody like maybe Wilson or whatever, or Cook or Singletary, either one. But I would rather spend the money elsewhere than take $6,800 and plug it into Joe Mixon.
I'm not doing that.
Now, Joe Burrow,
Bengals,
like
are my AFC team, but still, Mixon, not doing that.
Joe Burrow has played hot lately. He's been excellent all season.
Yep,
he's $1,000 less than Josh Allen.
Okay, and the Baltimore defense, great against the run. We just talked about. They're 26th against the pass.
Yeah,
they're going to be throwing that ball all over the place.
They are very gettable against the pass. So, I mean, you're gonna if you want to play Burrow, you want to play Chase,
right?
Jamar Chase,
right?
But and you're going to pay a little bit of money for that. But then if you wanted to pair them with a cheap tight end in Hayden Hurst,
who
could have a good game.
Healthy.
Yep,
and
who is healthy.
And he, even though he's missed some games, he has 52 catches.
Right.
So he's a guy that I would look at, and if you're looking to save money, I'd probably go Higgins.
You can go Higgins Chase and save yourself $1,900 over Chase.
Yeah,
and still get
that. Higgins is going to get his as well.
They were both. I mean, Chase was a wide receiver 10 on the season. He missed some games. Higgins was wide receiver 19 and missed some time as well. You're still talking great explosive opportunity. Or you could even make a case to back off from that. Tyler Boyd is only $4,000. He's a cheap wide receiver. You could take him, still have a stack.
So I don't know about all that.
But you could still have a stack with Burrow and save yourself some money again to then go hammer away on some of the big name running backs. There are points to be had here again. I mentioned the Bengals are the most expensive defense. I don't like that there because you can save yourself $300 and go get yourself the Bills and probably get the same or if not better production.
Right. So, especially because Bills and when they talk defense and special teams, most of the time is added into that. And the special teams for the Bills is on fire.
Right.
They're not going to have 2 touchdowns,
most
running,
likely, but
kickoff returns. That's not going to happen. So I don't feel too bold making that proclamation, but
facing off,
they are solid in their special teams. They're solid in their defense. So therefore, Bills is the way to go.
That's right. All right. Well, and now the last game. Then let's wrap this up real quick here. Cowboys and Buccaneers.
Okay.
Cowboys on the road here. They're favored by less than a touchdown.
Okay, as they should be.
Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Now, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers kind of won their division by default because no one else wanted to.
No one else wanted to, and they didn't have to win that last game. So they they pulled Tom Brady before halftime, and so don't look to that game at all for anything, and anything. And certainly,
I just brought
don't look at the Cowboys game against the Commanders because that was just straight awfulness going
Cowboys
on right
there.
there.
Terrible lately. You can't tell anything from them, but they're facing against the Buccaneers, who are
and their main chance in this game. If we talk about defense, all right, maybe the Cowboys you want to look at because they led the league in turnovers, and as we've seen coming down the stretch, Tom Brady has been more than amped to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati, we just talked about them, has the blueprint. If the Cowboys are smart, they looked at that game because the Bucks led early on, and then all of a sudden, Tom Brady was a turnover machine. He had 4 turnovers, and then the Bengals put it away. They ran away with it. That's the blueprint for a Cowboys win right here.
Leonard Fournette has been one of the least efficient running backs in the entire league this
So
season. He's only, I mean, he's running the ball
good pass catcher out of the backfield. And so that's where his whole value this season has come from.
But you mentioned, I mean, they're playing the number 2 defense in fantasy. They're actually a decent matchup for wide receivers. So you could look at Godwin and Evans and Gage in this game. It's whether or not you think that, as you said, is Brady going to turn the ball over against that great defense or not?
Right. They're the first team in quite some time because they led the league in turnovers last year, and they've done it again, which is hard to do.
They also threw it more than anybody else this season too, though. But
so they've got the ability to turn Tom Brady over. They just need Dak to please, not turn, don't
himself.
turn into the
15 interceptions
master that he has been.
15 interceptions in 12 games.
Right. Yeah. And that is, of course, way too many. We talk about Brock Purdy, right?
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Interceptions as a rookie, and he played much fewer games. And so if Dak, this is all about Dak to me, and it's all about the boy wonder over there that's calling the plays. And so they need to make sure they limit that. CeeDee Lamb needs to come online. Their run has been absolutely terrible, whether we're talking Pollard, talking Zeke, whomever. Their running game has completely disintegrated. And that was not the case earlier in the season. And so I think we're going to need to see some runs out of them.
To paraphrase Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski, Dak, you're being very un-Dak.
Right.
He has turned the ball over a ton. He hasn't been great throwing the ball. Now, CeeDee Lamb still coming off a decent game. He had, even in the midst of the train wreck that was last week, CeeDee Lamb had a good game. There are points to be seen here. I don't know that I want a part of Dak in daily.
Yeah, because Tampa's defense is solid.
Yeah.
And and when we talk about that Cincinnati game, they were holding Cincinnati down until all of a sudden, 38 yards and they score a touchdown because they kept turning the ball over. So
I think if you're looking at a build from this game, if you're trying to look at a daily build from this game, and I don't know how psyched up I am about a 1-game build if you're going to get into it, but you've obviously got stronger running backs on the Dallas side. You've got stronger receivers on the Tampa Bay side, but you're going to have to pay more to try and marry those two together. If you can do it, one way to maybe save some of that money is instead of going Godwin or Evans, go with Russell Gage, who has seen an uptick in his usage, lately, and has actually played, fairly well. You might want to look at tight end rather than going Dalton Schultz. Maybe looking at, say, Cade Otton on the other side in Tampa Bay, or looking at one of his own backups, Peyton Hendershot and Jake Ferguson. Now, they don't get a ton of usage. They don't get a ton of targets, but they both see targets every week, and they can find the end zone. So it would be a way for you to be a little counterculture tomorrow in your daily build, go cheaper, and be able to then maybe pay up for some of the receivers in Tampa Bay. And then the
I don't know about Cade Otton. Dallas is number 8.
No, they're number 8. But you're talking about not paying as much for Otton or paying a bunch for.
Yeah, I'd rather pay for Hurst that we just talked about. Than this all day long. So,
but who do you think comes out of this one, dude? Who do you think? Do you think this is another game that I'm
This is
it's a tough call because neither of them has looked great lately.
It's a tough game to call.
It's hard to bet against Tom Brady
Dallas,
in the playoffs.
I think Dallas, if they play, because they're the better team, obviously they didn't have a losing record, but they're playing in Tampa is not easy. Playing against the GOAT, not easy. But I do think that if the Cowboys do not win this game, Mike McCarthy better stay at the airport. I know what Jerry Jones had to say earlier, but don't put a single second of stock into that.
Right.
So I think the Cowboys do win this game, but it's one of those where you flip a coin and it's going to be right as many times as what we predict here today.
Right. It's a tough game. I agree with you. I think the Cowboys are the better team. I do think they somehow pull off a win today. I feel weird saying that about Brady at home, but yeah. That team took such a step back this year compared to what we've seen them be in the last couple of years. And the Cowboys are if they just play
right, if they stay out of their own way,
right, they
win this game.
All right. Well, that you know what? We're going to leave it there. We're going to wrap it up here and get out of here and actually go watch some football here. But
that's right. So, make sure you got some, what do you call that? The stuff you put in your eyes so they don't bleed throughout the day. Visine. Okay. Yeah. So make sure you have some of that handy because football is going to be the dominant factor in today's activity.
Be a good day.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got coming up here, Kevin? What do you got going on for us right now?
Right now, well, I wrote my first fantasy baseball article last week, and now that we're transitioning towards baseball, you can expect that to be occurring on a weekly basis going forward. And I think that my next article, because there's a lot of changes in the rule when it comes to baseball this year over last year. And that's certainly going to have an effect on fantasy,
Are we going to see a rebirth of base running?
We're going to see a rebirth of base running. We're going to see left-handed hitters actually hit.
Yeah. So right. Not have to hit into the shift. Yep.
Not having to hit into the shift. And so those are, just two of the changes that are coming to baseball. And I will be looking at that. And so you can expect that this week at some point from me. And of course, you can always go to Twitter, Kevin62, WILSEA. I will not change the SEA part, even though they lost yesterday. So,
hey, I'm still wearing this.
So yeah, so we are rock steady when it comes to our team. So that's just the way it is.
The difference is Bart Starr won championships.
Yes, championships.
Plural. He won a pair of Super Bowls himself.
Right, and that's something far, or Aaron Rodgers has not done.
No. So sticking with the baseball theme real quick here for a second, and the rule changes. I know we're getting off the air, and this might be an opportunity for an article for one of us here coming down the line. But do you think we ever see a return to that late '80s, Ricky Henderson and Coleman both running for 90 and 80 and 100 stolen bases in a season?
No.
Do you think anybody ever does that again?
No, they can try and massage things all they want to in baseball, and maybe you see a guy steal 50, 60 bases.
Right.
With
that would be astronomical in today's game.
Right. And so that's going to have a massive effect on the guys that can run. Mm-hmm. And just a little, if you're in a category league, which I am not, but if you're in a Cats league, stolen bases are a valuable commodity. And so that is something that you're going to want to look at in the first round of your draft. Stolen bases.
Just remember guys like that, Vince Coleman.
Vince Coleman, right?
Such a weapon on the pads, and
he was, and Ricky Henderson was a walking double.
And they literally stole. They literally each of them. They literally stole a base every other game.
Right, and you could add Tim Raines and a whole bunch of other guys into that conversation.
Steal a base a week.
Right.
Now.
So. So I think the stolen bases will certainly increase, but no, we will never again see a guy steal, I'd say even maybe 80, 70. let alone 100.
Can you imagine watching a guy like Jose Canseco run for 40 stolen bases in the modern age? A power hitter like that, who also steal 40, be an absolute phenom. But anyway, we're getting off our track here.
So there
you can find my articles. You can find my articles. I'll have game previews up for every game here for the rest of the playoffs.
Right,
again,
so you definitely want to check that out.
Weekly.
No question.
I'll touch on daily stuff, and coming up here, as soon as football season ends, I'll have some baseball content out here too for everybody. But check me out on STT Chase FFB. Get over to BellyUpFantasySports.com.
That's right. Get
check
over
everything out over there.
Everything. No credentials required. The shows are just endless to name.
That's right. All right, everybody. I hope that your fantasy dreams come true today, or at least the football ones. And we will see you back here, same time, same channel.
That's right.
Slanjava, everybody.
See ya.